Welcome back to iHeartRadio's The Moll Anderson Show. Well, there's always love in the air, but it's more prevalent during the holidays. And with mistletoe hanging everywhere, let's invite on relationship psychology expert and author of Ruin the Bet and her latest book, which also, by the way, makes a great Christmas present, called Elect. Rachel Van Dyken, welcome to The Moll Anderson Show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, thank you. We're excited for you to be here. And anytime we can talk about kissing, well, that just, makes us all happy. I know. Well, let's talk about the fact that mistletoe is hanging everywhere. The new year is right around the corner, and there's a lot of kissing going on, as I said. Rachel, how can you give us some perspective on how to tell what a kiss means?
I'm a huge fan of body language. I think a lot of people look into kissing as, technique or, how long is the kiss, how is their tongue or is it short? They think about location, and I think especially women, we tend to overanalyze everything, and we kind of take things apart and we think, okay, well, it was this long and this happened and his hands were here, and then, you know what I mean? So it gets kind of confusing, and so what I like to do is break it down to body language. How close is the person standing? Are they acting like they're into you? Are they standing close to you? Are they touching you? A lot of times, men especially subconsciously, they'll touch you on the shoulder or they'll touch you on the arm or they'll pull you close to them, and that means an openness. That's a lack of insecurity there, and so they're pulling you towards them and they're kind of opening up to you, and that's kind of a clue to the woman that, hey, this is something that they're really into. This is something that they're being vulnerable with you. And I think a lot of times, too, women tend to forget that it starts with, the person standing close to you. Are they turned away from you? Are their feet turning away from you? Are their arms turning away from you? And so the first thing I just tell women to look at is, how are they standing? How are they holding you? Are they touching you? And how much body contact is happening?
Now, is this something, because you want to be in the moment, too. So is this something you're supposed to pay attention to, not during the kiss, but maybe after, to put the forethought into it, sort of in the back of your mind, and then afterwards recall it? How do you do that without messing up the kiss?
Right, without messing up the magic of the moment and being like...
Exactly. Because there might not be so much magic if you're worried about what he's doing, correct?
Exactly. And you want it to be magical. Every girl wants to be swept off her feet. Every girl wants that perfect kiss that, leaves their lips buzzing for hours afterwards. And I think that afterwards, that's the time when you reflect. And a lot of women, too, there's a lot of nervousness beforehand. And then when the kiss happens, we're kind of consumed by it. And I would say this, if during the kiss you're not consumed by it, if it's not something that's causing you to feel things that you should be feeling while kissing someone, then that's probably a bad sign in the first place. So if you're already breaking down the kiss as you're kissing, probably not good. So it's always good to
Rachel, is it possible that maybe no one's ever taken the time to teach him how to kiss? And you shouldn't just throw the, baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. Maybe take the time to see if you can kind of teach him how to kiss, or do you just say, this is it?
Oh, I think you should totally do that. I think that there's obviously a learning curve on that aspect when it comes to the person you're kissing. But I think at the same time, women are, we're emotionally charged. And the way that we read people is a lot different than the way that men read people. And so I think that any woman in a situation like that could tell if a guy's nervous, or they can tell if maybe the guy doesn't have the technique that maybe you do, or maybe the experience you do. And that's really endearing. And so I don't think that, that should be a deal breaker when it comes to your relationship or maybe a future relationship with that person. I think it just depends on the situation and the person. And a lot of times, too, I think you can tell if the person's just inexperienced or if they're just not feeling you. If they're not feeling you, they're not going to take the time to be vulnerable enough to even try to kiss you. You know what I mean? And so I think there's a difference between those two things.
Well, if you're just joining me, I'm visiting with the author of the new book, Elect, Rachel Van Dyken. Now, Rachel, okay, let's talk about some serious red flags that might decide us, make us decide that this is absolutely not going anywhere. What would that absolute be?
Well, I think a big red flag is the person isn't open to you. When you're standing next to someone and they're constantly turned away, they're constantly crossing their arms, averting eye contact. Those are all really big signs that the person really isn't into you. And then if they're giving you all those signs, but at the end of the night, they still want to kiss, I think that's a pretty big red flag. I think, too, around the holidays, people want to have companionship because a lot of people are really lonely. And so I think that it's really smart to be on the lookout for those who are just looking for a quick hookup rather than those who are looking for a serious relationship. So I think that you really need to pay attention to that body language. And if the person is not seeming like they're into you until the end of the night, then that's something that you need to be aware of. And also, if they're really aggressive and it's like a first or second date and you don't know them that well, then that's probably another red flag that, is something that you want to look at. I was on the show the other day and we were talking about red flags on relationships and dating. And I think too, when you meet someone for the first time, you can pretty much judge their character within the first couple of minutes. If they're rude to strangers or rude to other people or they talk a lot about themselves, I mean, those are all things that really you just need to use discernment and wisdom when you're dating someone.
Don't you think that we, especially as women, we know, and sometimes, we make excuses for behaviors because we want it to work. And so if we just really took a stance and said, this is my absolute list of, I want him to be kind to people. I want him to be thoughtful. I want him to be a loving, caring date. I mean, if we really make a list of the things that we really want in a man or vice versa, don't you think that helps us to kind of understand right away and we pay better attention?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that we've, as a society, gone away from that, and that makes me really sad because women need to have high standards. And I think there's so much pressure this day and age to be with someone and to have a relationship. And it's okay to be independent, and it's okay to take your time and wait for that person to come along because, I think about marriage, it's for life. You don't want to get stuck in a relationship where you're constantly having to make excuses for the person that you're with. And I think as women, we're so good at justifying things, and we're so good, especially for making excuses for other people because we make excuses for ourselves. And I think that that's something that you really do need to put your foot down and know that you deserve to have exactly what you want in a relationship. And that doesn't mean the person has to be perfect, but that does mean you need to have a certain set of standards for the person that you want to be with.
And okay, that's cool. I totally believe that. But what happens if you've got the perfect guy, but he just can't kiss like we talked about before? Don't you think that we can kind of, and because I know women are afraid to upset the male ego, so to speak, but maybe I had this kiss that I'll never forget from one of my first kisses. And it was like this great white shark coming at me, full wide mouth. And I was like, oh my gosh, and I thought, I mean, it just totally ruined the mood. And I thought, now looking back, of course, it wasn't meant to be, but I could have said, I really love it when you just come in so gentle and you just, I don't know. What would you do? What do you suggest? How do we tell the guy how to kiss us the way we want to be kissed?
It's a really good question. You got to stroke his ego. You can't just come out and say, well, that was bad, or wow, that was interesting. You don't want to hurt him because then he's not going to want to kiss you anymore, or he's going to get worse because he's going to be nervous the whole time, and you really don't want him to get nervous if it's already bad. So you really have to say, wow, that was really nice, but why don't we try this next time? Or, oh, wow, I love when you hold me like this. When you compliment them and then tell them what to do, it's a lot different than just coming out and attacking them because you're stroking the ego, but you're also asking for a little bit more. And then they get more confidence because you've just given them a compliment, and then they want to try harder. So I think that, if you combine those two, it's a successful thing to do. And it's kind of the same thing you do with kids, which sounds really terrible. And I'm not saying that guys are like kids at all, but it's the love and logic thing where you come out and you say, oh, I'm so proud of you for making good choices. And you did a really good job today. So next time, maybe we should work on, and fill in the gap.
Sure.
It sounds
sure.
kind of like, and it sounds silly too because it sounds like you're trying to train someone, but you got to start off with the good and then put in the bad so it doesn't sound as terrible.
Like anything in life. Well, if you're just joining me, I'm visiting with Rachel Van Dyken, and she's got a new book out called Elect, and we're talking about kissing and how to tell guys, a very positive way about kissing us and how we want to be kissed and all of that kind of good stuff. All right. Well, now, Rachel, when you write your best-selling romance novels, is the description of a kiss what pulls the reader in, leading up to it and talking about how he draws her to him and takes her hair and it falls back and her eyes close and the foot goes up in the back? I mean, is that the thing that helps sell that kiss in the novel?
I think so. I'm a huge fan of actually being in the male point of view. So when I read a lot of my novels, I like to jump into the male point of view when it comes to kissing because I think that women are always wondering, do they want me? How bad do they want me? What does it feel like to them? And so I really try to go into that perspective where, he is running his hands through her hair and he's feeling every touch like it's singeing him. You know what I mean? You really have to get into the vulnerability and the emotions that are going through both of their heads. I think it's easy just to say, and he kissed her and it was awesome. It's hard to describe a kiss. I mean, if you actually had to sit down and say, okay, I'm going to describe the best kiss in the world, it's really hard. And every time I do it, I have to sit there and kind of, calm myself down and think about, okay, what am I feeling? Like, what are my hands doing? What are my legs doing? What's happening in my hair? Am I scared? You have so many emotions going through you. And luckily, my husband's a rock star, so sometimes I go up to him, kiss me. Like, I need to know what it feels like. And he looks at me like I'm crazy, but he always helps because sometimes, you write something so much that you forget. And I think that's another good point for in real life. Sometimes you kiss so much that you just forget about the simple things, and I think it's always important to bring back that spark that you originally had.
To your point, I think people forget to kiss after a while. They forget how important that just to hold each other and just to kiss, guys are just like, they think, oh my gosh, if I start kissing him, I'm really tired tonight and that means we're going to have sex. Luckily for me, I could say that's not the case, but I find that a lot of people I talk to say, gosh, I just want to be kissed and I don't want anything else to happen sometimes. I just want that touch, that nurturing feeling of that lingering kiss, like when you were in high school,
Exactly. When you were making out and you knew that it probably shouldn't go any further and you're still young and it's still exciting. And I think that that's such a great point to make. People just don't kiss anymore. And what's funny is, when you watch movies or when you read romance novels, a lot of times the first kiss is what just killed you, right? When you're watching it or you're reading.
Oh, I know.
Think about The Notebook, like when they kiss in the rain. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the most epic kiss ever. They're just hungry for each other and it's so beautiful. And, girls want to be pursued in that way, even if it's been 10, 15 years that you've been married or you've been in a relationship or a partnership. You want to know that the other person still has a fire for you. And I think the best way, especially for women to feel that, is for the man or the person that they're with to really embrace them in that way and kiss them, because women are all about touch. Guys are about sight. Women are about feeling and touch. And kissing is so personal that I think that's the best way to get back on that level that you used to be at when you first met that person.
Well, plus I think guys really want us to say, oh gosh, I love it when you kiss me and oh, pull me close and, and just, we got to get to the point where we're verbal, and talk, because that's what men are. They visualize, but they also want to hear it too.
Absolutely. I think we get afraid as women to say something or to say what we want or what we like. And that's the worst thing you can do, because then you start resenting that person for not reading your mind. And that's
yes.
Because you can't, there's no way they could know what you're thinking. And then all of a sudden you're harboring all of this anger. And I think that's how relationships really break down, because that communication is no longer there. And that resentment starts to take root in your heart. And I think that that's terrible, and that's sad. I think a lot of relationships could be saved if people would just communicate and be honest with one another and not be afraid to share their feelings.
Well, I tell you, I think that this is great, because I think a lot of people are going to be very excited about kissing thanks to you.
Well, thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for being on the show. And if you're looking for a last-minute Christmas present, go out and buy Elect, Rachel Van Dyken's new book. And Rachel, thank you so much for joining us, and go home and kiss that husband of yours for no reason at all.
I will do that right now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Up next, Jessica Garvey joins me on iHeartRadio's The Moll Anderson Show, right here.
Kiss me at midnight. Bye.